We're underneath a 2001 F250 Super Duty that has a leaky oil cooler. So we're taking a break from the Subaru stuff and we're going to work on that. This particular truck has the 5.4 Triton motor in it, which is definitely one of the best units Ford has ever produced. And there is nothing at all I would change about that motor. That's a lie. I'd rather be working on the driveway than rolling around, getting wet, getting dirty in the grass. And I don't want to drive the truck because when I start it, it's going to be leaking oil again. So we'll just winch it. I needed 2 lengths, so I've got the first length connected to the second with a soft shackle there. And a soft shackle around the tow hook. I'm going to lift the plow up, and the cable will be underneath it. And there's no down pressure on this plow, it's just gravity on a chain. So if the cable lifts up the plow when it gets tight, that's not going to be a big deal. So we got the cable under the front plow. I put a rag there, try and save the cable from a little stress and chafing. Now all we have to do is lift up the rear plow. We should be able to pull it up. Now what I'm going to do before we crawl into the truck is short chain the plow. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10th link. That way, if something does happen, and this, for some reason, loses pressure, and the plow drops, it won't chop my legs off. So that's a plus. Safety first, or third. So the problem is this oil cooler up here. What happens with these trucks, plow trucks, you get a little bit of salt, some brine gets stuck up in between the filter and the oil cooler. And after a while that'll corrode and you'll get a leak, which is exactly what happened here. I like to start it up every month or so, get the fluids going. I don't drive, I just let it run in the yard. And when I did that, I walked away. After about 30 seconds, I heard a gurgling sound, and I knew exactly what it was. I came in and looked under the fender through the wheel well, and saw oil squirting, dripping out from right about here. So I'm willing to bet there's a little bit of corrosion in there. But to do that, to change all this, obviously we'll need to drain the oil, filter off. There's a tube, I don't know what you'd really call it, a tube that goes through the center of this that holds it to the block. That's held down by a 14mm Allen key. You also wind up losing a bunch of coolant because the engine coolant cools the oil. That's what those 2 rubber hoses are. I was hoping that I could just clamp those off and get minimal. Actually, I might be able to clamp those off and not lose so much coolant. I can get to them right there with a couple vice grips, clamp them off real tight, and won't lose so much. But those clamps aren't looking too good, so I might have to replace those. See, everything under here is wet. See a whole lot else going on. The starter's a little shot. Oh, you know, you crawl into these trucks and it's like opening a can of worms. So I just found this stuffed up there. Huh. All right. Well, pulled that out, so hopefully that'll solve a bit of my problems. We'll see. Solving my thirst problems. Now we just got to get under there and change the oil. There we go. Wow. Really hoping to not spill oil all over my driveway. But, well, I'm probably going to wind up doing it anyway. Which is too bad. Alright. Who knows, maybe there's no oil in it. Oh, look at that, oil. Moment of truth. Okay. Didn't jam everything up. You know, I was just thinking to myself as this oil's draining out, I'm like, that's not really that much oil. And then I had to remember that probably 3/4 of it spilled onto my lawn. So we'll let that drain for a couple minutes. I'll come back with you and we'll see what we get out of the filter. So now we're going to pop off the filter. I might have to get a real oil filter wrench on this. If I can't get this to grip. No. Just spins her. It's too bad. Alright, well, I know I've got a regular filter wrench somewhere. So now we're going to work on getting the oil cooler off. There's a 14mm Allen or hex bit that'll fit up there. You just unscrew the whole thing. Now, as far as those coolant lines, I actually clamped them off right about here. I was going to just put some garden hose around the teeth, around the jaws of the vice grips. I just taped them up so they don't mar up the hoses and rip them. So I'll show you what we're working with. This is the replacement oil cooler. It's the socket you need, the Allen drive. And this is the new oil cooler. Goes up like this. So this is the bottom. The oil filter screws onto it. This goes up into the middle, threads into the block, holds everything up there. And we just got to pull off these coolant lines. These are probably going to leak coolant all over the place. So we'll get a bucket under there. And I'm going to have to get a long pair of pliers and get those clamps off. When I showed you the replacement oil cooler, I actually had it upside down. The part with the gasket goes up against the block. And you can see just how grungy that gets. All that stuff. Just imagine salt or something sitting up there, working its way in and corroding, you know, this area, maybe the top of the filter, but you know, whatever it does, it causes a little pinhole and it leaks. So it wasn't too much of a pain getting this stuff off. I didn't lose too much coolant because I had the lines clamped off at the bottom of the radiator. So I'll get this one back in. This one's actually bent. That's the new one. Look at that. Huh. Yeah, that's bent. Hopefully that's not an issue, because I don't want to go through all this again. So it took me way longer than I care to admit to get that oil cooler back on. But it's there. Oil cooler's on. Filter's on. I took the light out already, but the coolant lines are back on and clamped. I unclamped the coolant lines that I had, you know, crimped down with the vice grips. Those are off. I heard the coolant glugging back downstream, and nothing leaked. So we're good there so far. Now I'm just going to put some more oil in, top off the coolant. I didn't lose much. This is where it was. This is the max fill line. That's where it was before we started, and it's right about here right now. So better than losing all the coolant. The vice grips worked pretty well. Equally as impressive, the plow didn't leak down at all. Still got plenty of slack, so that's good too. So we'll refill the fluids, we'll top it off, start it up, run it for a little while, see what happens. So it's been running for about 10 minutes, and it's dry. I mean, there's a little smoke from where I spilled some oil before, so that's burning off. But the filter's dry, the coolant line's dry. This is where I got that exhaust leak. Right here, you can feel it and see that bolt's completely gone. But one thing I did notice was that she's dripping transmission fluid. All right, from there. And she's all wet and dripping, so obviously one of the cooling lines for the transmission is rusted through. So I'm gonna get that fixed, and then I think I'm just gonna sell the truck. I keep telling myself every year that I'm gonna get out of the snow removal business, and every year I wind up continuing on with it. I've owned the snow removal business for almost 10 years now, and I'm just, every year it gets to the end, I'm like, I'm done. It's aggravating, nobody wants to pay, everyone wants it done dirt cheap, and I've got 2 little boys now. I'd rather spend the winters sledding and having fun with them. So I think that's the plan for this little girl. Thanks for watching.